Today I'm going to use this time to go ahead and go over how to do the evidence log. My evidence log is titled differently because this is a copy of your evidence log, so it won't update yours. Yours will look something like this one right here on the left with these little underscores and then quotation marks and parentheses. Mine does not because I've currently already rewritten this and then have pasted it, and then we'll, as we go along, I will make it the text dark so you can actually see it. You need to answer this question here at the top. How does the writer create a sense of fear in the reader? As you are working through your slides and you've taken notes, think about things we've talked about already. Things like plot and different type of devices. What kind of devices does the author use? Does the author use supernatural? Does the author use necromancy? Like, what kind of plot devices does the author use throughout their writing that helps create fear in the reader? You'll answer that prompt here. It may change every single time, every time you read a different text, because they're going to use different elements. They might in one use necromancy, but in another use grotesque. They might use different types of characters or different settings that help invoke a fear. Here in this first box right here that you see, this first box is the summary of what your quote is. I find it's best to pick your quote first and then work from there. However, it's up to you. So in my case, I'm going to start with my quote. I've already chosen my quote and written this out so that we don't waste any time. So I'm going to go ahead and make my quote visible now. So my quote, here if you notice, I forgot a comma on my introductory clause. Oops. So I have an introductory clause. That's what these underscores are right here. They're introductory clauses. That means that you introduce your text and your author. So in Feathered Pillow, Quiroga writes, and I should have this in quotation marks because it is a short story. It also can be italicized instead. Why can I not speak English? This is kind of embarrassing. I'm going to italicize mine, actually. So in Feathered Pillow, Quiroga, the author writes, in the deathly silence of the house, the only sound was the monotonous delirium from the bedroom and the dull echoes of Jordan's eternal pacing. Oh, there. I messed up. So don't be me. So I'll tell you what I've messed up on. Introductory clauses, when you introduce the text and the author, you do need a comma after your introductory phrase. Then you have your quotation mark, your quote, end quotation. There should be only one space, not two. A space, parenthesis, author name, page number, parenthesis, period. This is the page number that's in the consumable text that you don't yet have. You're picking up on Wednesday. But you should be able to see it on the PDF I provided to you, your page number. A period does not go here. It only goes at the end of your entire citation. You must have the citation, the parentheses, with the author's name and the page number in it. If you do not, it's considered plagiarism. You are copying a quote and presenting it as your own because you don't tell us where it came from. Always make sure you have this MLA quote. They're not super hard to create. So this is my quote. I'm talking about the silence of the house and the delirium. By delirium, we're referring to Alicia's hallucinations and her ravings and her screaming. So then what you're going to do is you're going to go through the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, the how of your quote. So in my case, I've done it two different ways. You can either do it this way, or you can write it as a paragraph. And I wrote, in Feathered Pillow, Alicia is rapidly getting worse, and no one's quite sure why. As she gets sicker, her husband starts to worry, and the house is silent. Minus her husband nervously pacing, and her delusions as she lays in bed. Okay, so there is just a quick summary of what this quote is really about. I'm just rephrasing in time, or if you don't want to write a paragraph, I'm also totally fine with you writing bullet points on this one only. On this first box, you can have bullet points, but everything else must be a sentence. But if you're trying to remind yourself what it's about, it could be things like, at home, the husband is pacing. The house is quiet because Alicia's bedridden, and the husband is worried she's sick, and he doesn't often worry. She's getting sicker. She's having delusions. Those are all things you can write here in this who, what, when, where. And then below is you're connecting your prompt and your quote. So your job is to take this quote you see right here and to tell me how does it invoke a sense of fear in the reader. It is not enough to just tell me your quote and then summarize it again and say that what is not commentary is saying, Well, the house is quiet, and he's pacing. It's fear, because he's pacing. Why is his pacing creating fear in the reader? Why is the silence creating fear? The question is always why. If I can read your essay and still have to ask you why, you didn't do your job. Your job is to answer every why I might have. So here I'm going to connect the why. Why does the fact that the house is silent and Jordan is pacing, why does that invoke fear in the reader? Well, Quiroga uses the setting to invoke fear. He describes the house as silent minus Alicia's delirious screams and raving. So from here, the author's description helps create a mood of unease because the reader feels on edge, knowing the whole house is silent. Do you know what I'm missing here? I talk about how the house is silent, which is good, but you know what I don't talk about? Why do the screams and delusions create fear? Alicia screaming is atypical and makes the reader assume something is wrong. Okay? So now we are at, Quiroga uses a setting to invoke fear. He describes the house as silent, minus Alicia's delirious screams and ravings. The author's description helps create a mood of unease because the reader feels on edge, knowing the whole house is silent. Alicia's screaming is atypical and makes the reader assume that something is wrong. It further helps invoke fear because we know that Jordan does not typically worry or show emotion. Here he is pacing in a silent house, which means something is truly wrong. Jordan, we know, doesn't do much. He's kind of in his own little world. He doesn't really like to show emotion. If he's pacing and he's worried, something is wrong. And that tells us how the author creates a sense of fear in the reader. We know from this quote that they're acting abnormally in this house, that something in the house is bad, and therefore they're acting weird. And so that's how you're going to fill out your evidence log here. You're going to do the other one over here. I encourage you to do a second one quote that is not the quote I have given you here. So with that said, this is due on Monday when you come to, actually it's Sunday night, 11 to 9 p.m. It's Monday when you come to class. So Sunday night, this is due. You should have already had the text. If you have not read Feather Pillow, you need to go back and read Feather Pillow.